Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mistakes Were Made. We are back at the dining room table, and as you can see, we are going to do the budget recap for the first pay period, which is April 1st through the 15th. And no, your ears do not deceive you. I have, in fact, managed to get our spring cold, which seems to happen every single year. Mr. M ended up getting ill a little while ago, and I'd hoped that I had dodged it, but unfortunately, a day or two ago it hit me. So I am dealing with that, and let's just leave it there. Let's zoom in, okay, and see exactly where we landed for this pay period. So as far as the income side of things, we only had a small change from what we were expecting. So we'll fill in Mr. M's pay, which did not have any adjustments, as well as my share of the costs, but we did end up with a sale or two on Etsy, which ended up being $35.23. Now, just for information, because this did fall within a week that I plan on claiming unemployment benefits, I do have to note that gross amount. This is not the gross amount. This is after they've taken fees and all of that out. I have to claim the actual amount that the customer paid me before they take fees and stuff out of there. So just as an FYI. And then the buffer rollover, that did not change, so 298 cents. So let's go ahead and add that all up. 231.48 plus 1100 plus 35.23 plus 200.98. And I do apologize if there's any awkward or weird pauses. It's because I'm waiting for my brain to catch up to what we're doing. I do have a little bit of a headache because of the sinus pressure, so that's my issue that I'm dealing with right now. So the total that we're looking at is $3367.69. So a little bit higher than what we were expecting, but not by a ton. Next, there we go. This paper is very awkward. Next, we have the first of two mortgage payments of $874.99. If you've been with us for a while, you know my mortgage company does this for some unknown reason. And then, of course, the $206.28. And then there are no changes with the expected costs for most of these items. The only one that did change, I'm skipping over it just now so I can write these normal ones, is the water bill. And the water bill actually ended up being $126.96, which was the amount that we had been charged before. Let's see, we are in April, so March and February and March, it had bumped to 128 something, and then prior to that it was this 126.96. So I guess we were using just that little bit more amount of water, which required a little bit higher of a cost. So I don't think there's any kind of leak. I couldn't tell you what we did more often in those previous 2 months than the ones before that and this past month. So who knows? I do expect, though, that we will be using more water as the gardening season picks up. I have tried to, in the last few years, back down from how often I was watering our garden. And I would argue that we have seen really, really good returns. So I have a feeling that in the past I was probably overwatering. And I intend to do the same this year, be kind of limiting on how often I water. Right now it's spring and we tend to have a lot of rain, so I don't usually do any augmenting watering, but this particular week is a absolutely gorgeous, unexpectedly gorgeous week. We're not expecting any rain. It's supposed to be in the very high 60s and into the 70s. Super surprising. So I'm probably going to do a little bit of watering today. If not today, then maybe tomorrow, to kind of break up the week up a little bit as far as watering is considered. Now, next week, it's supposed to just be pouring rain the entire week. So, we'll be back to our normal. Anyway, that little weather report is now over. All right, so let's go ahead and add all of these up. $874.99 plus $206.28 plus $17.99 plus $11.99 plus $29.25 plus $126.96 plus $255.75, which comes to a total of $162. 1623 is how I should probably say it, 21. And then if we subtract that from our income amount of $3367.69, that leaves us with $1,744.48. Okay. Now, this is the first pay period, so we do not have any budgeted amounts for the emergency fund. So we're just going to note the 200 for right now, which drops us down to 1544.48. And then for the sinking funds, again, we didn't have any changes, nothing, no costs that we were unable to cover with the money that we already had available or anything like that. So we are just going to copy everything over. Starting to get a little bit close to the limit of where you guys can see. And I apologize if I'm trying to make sure that if I need to do a sniffle or a cough or something like that, that I pause the video. But sometimes it catches me unaware, or while I'm in the middle of doing something, and so I'm not quite on top of it. Okay, so we have the 1544.48, and we're subtracting 701. Which puts us at 843.48. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and write that up here as well. 843, oopsie, well, 48. Okay, so now this pay period, I actually did go over my $30. Ended up being $31.99. So if we take that out of here, leaves us with $811.49. And then of course we have our $100 that goes to the long-term goals. Zoom us down here. Which leaves us with $711.49. Oh dear. Okay. So as we can see, we did end up with a little bit more than we were expecting to have, which is great. And that means that we will be putting different amounts than what we anticipated for the areas that we fund with any leftover income. Now, I'm not going to do the math on these. Again, if that's something that you do like to see, let me know and I will reintegrate those back into the video. But for now, we're just going to write down what the totals are going to be, what the totals are. And do keep in mind, this budget is closed now. We have finished everything with this, and pretty much everything has actually been either transferred or paid out. The only difference, or the only ones that haven't yet, are the sinking fund items and the fun items, because those we pull out in cash, and we're not doing that until I go to the bank to pull the standard, sinking fund cash stuff out so that I can do it all at one time. Okay, so mortgage gets 30%, and for the total that we have, that means we made a $213 mortgage payment towards the principal. Emergency fund, long-term goals, those get 20%, and those both got $142 transferred into their respective accounts. Try and make that easier to discern between what we had guesstimated and the actual. The sinking funds would also have gotten 142, but because of the way the math goes, it ended up being rounded up or bumped up. So sinking funds, we will be pulling out $144, and that's going to be $36 for each of these 4 items that we are focusing on. Okay, and then as a result, that did mean that the fun category got adjusted downward, so it ended up with $70. So still more than what we were expecting, but it was an adjustment downwards. And of course, the rollover takes on anything that is in the change category, so it ended up getting 49 cents. So we're going to go ahead, and document this for posterity, I guess. And actually, I have to admit, I am really glad that I have been keeping notes, both in a digital record as well as ones that I have handwritten. I've got, and I'll pull it out in just a second because we're going to go over some of the bigger ticket items that we're working on. I have a cat that is in the background and jumping on counters. I give you 3 guesses who it is. I think you can guess in one. It's the biggest troublemaker that we have. Anyway, I have a notebook that, I'd pull out every so often, and we would go over, where the debt is and all of that, because I had written it all out. And it was interesting. Today I was going through that, and I was looking at some of the earlier pages, and it really hit home, the progress that we had made, where we used to be, where we are now, and just kind of the different dynamics that we're dealing with right now. I mean, before we had 2 incomes coming in, very robust ones. Now we have one robust one and one that's not quite as robust because we're pulling it out of savings. And it was just interesting to kind of see how things have changed over time for the positive and for maybe the less positive, but also to re-review, when things get a little stagnant, or even when things are harder than you might want them to be, or you just feel like you're in a bit of a rut with what you're working on, just because your goals are so big and so long, and they're going to take a while to just go back and look at the progress that you've made. It really was helpful for me. It really made me appreciate, yes, this next step could be, quite a pain in the patootie, but We can do it. We've done it before. We've had good success with our efforts. And so, just stay on track and do the best you can. And so that's, I definitely, the whole point of this was I definitely recommend tracking what you're doing, if only for the opportunity to be able to go backwards and see just how far you've come. So I think I've written down, oh, nope, I forgot about 49. All of the areas that we have updated with the new info. So let's get to our other updates, our big ticket item updates, as I call them. Okay, I don't know, I guess zooming out like that doesn't seem to, wrong way, whoa, work quite as well. I don't know. You're not going to be as close up as I would like, but for the mortgage at the beginning of the month, we were at, let me move my hands out of the way so it doesn't blur, $231,678.95. And then after our $213 payment to the principal, we're at $231,465.95. Now, during this pay period, we did, of course, make a mortgage payment, but the way our mortgage processor handles it is even though the payment has been made, it gets held until the second payment of the month is completed, and then, they add it all together, and that makes the full month payment, and then they apply it. So during the middle of the month, we're not going to necessarily see much adjustment that includes whatever impact our standard payment has on the mortgage. So it'll just, oh my goodness. Okay, hold on, catastrophe in the works. Lord, I tell you, this cat has managed to live a long and healthy life, but if it's not careful, it's not going to live much longer. This guy, yeah, I'm talking about you, Percy, because you're being a bad boy, as always. Oh, he's always in everything, on everything. And nope, he's gonna try and get attention now. We're just gonna ignore him because he's being a little poo-poo. All right, so anyway, we're not gonna see a lot of movement in the middle of the months, simply because of how the payment process actually gets applied. So whatever amounts that we do, I'm ignoring you, dude. Just as part of our at the end of the pay period payments, that's basically any reduction that we're going to see. Yeah, I don't want you on the table, dude. Okay. Next is our long-term goal. So that is the yard cleanup. We were at $17.98 at the end of March, and as of the end of this pay period, we are at $2,040. So that includes the $100 auto transfer that we do every pay period, plus the $142 that we just did. And oh my gosh, this guy, Percy, get down. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm going to wrap this up. Okay, and so last but not least is the emergency fund. We ended last pay period, the one in March, at $2403.92. And we have ended this pay period at $2545.94. That, of course, includes the $142 payment that we made to it, plus there was a little bit of interest that got applied. Now, the pay period that if you can hear all that noise, that is, yes, Percy trying to get my attention. He is now climbing up my back. Cat. Okay, anyway, yes, you're very cute. Go away. Anyway, he is really getting on my last nerve, so we're ending this ASAP. we usually have our $25 standard payment in this pay period, the one that we're getting started, and so we'll see a little bit more of an increase in the second half of the month. I don't know if you can hear the purring in the background. He is making biscuits in my shoulder, and it does not feel great. Oh, he's so lucky, he's cute. Anyway, that is the end of this. I am being mauled by a cat, so I am going to close it. If you have any questions, concerns, anything like that, please note those down below. And as always, I do appreciate you watching our videos. And I guess, yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.